As president of the Peoria Historical Society, I was honored to present the very first Henri deTonti Award to the men and women of Caterpillar. The award recognized the outstanding leadership Caterpillar employees provided to organizations within their communities. Tonight, the Historical Society is awarding the 7th deTonti Award to a man with a Caterpillar background, a man with a long record of providing inspired leadership within his community. Jim Baldwin believes strongly that an individual can make a difference. He believes that a commitment to one's community is a foundation upon which a successful and rewarding lifetime can be built. I didn't work with Jim until after his retirement, but when we worked together on the restoration of the Laterno Steel House, his positive spirit and commitment was an inspiration. Jim is not a paper shuffling leader. He is a hands-on, roll up his sleeves, let's get her done, focused and moving forward leader. Our service together on the Wheels of Time Museum Board has shown again that he has a strong commitment to providing leadership throughout the community. Jim, we thank you for your spirit of leadership and a lifetime of dedication to your community. You exemplify the commitment to leadership that the deTonti Award honors.
You ready? Yeah. Are you ready, y'all? Are you ready now? I came to Peoria. Was interviewed. I had 2 job offers, one with CAT and one was for the Chicago Tribune. And I decided I didn't want to live in Chicago, so I came to Peoria. My brother worked at Caterpillar and my grandfather was a contractor. So Caterpillar seemed like the right thing. The first thing that we got involved with was the river because we were from Minnesota and we needed someplace to go and we didn't want to drive back and forth to Minnesota. So we were asked to get involved with saving the riverfront, or actually before the riverfront, saving the Peoria Lakes and the Illinois River. And it was an organization called Heartland Water Resources Council. We were very much involved in that particular project for a long time. I got a visit from Henry Holling for Caterpillar, and he said Jim Maloof had called him and said, we need somebody to be the Riverfront Authority chairman. My wife and I had a long conversation whether I was going to spend time, because all those things take time away from your family. My wife and I took the job. She's the enabler.
Jim Baldwin really burst on the scene from the Caterpillar leadership ranks to civic ranks. No single person is more important to the development of the riverfront in the last 50 years than Jim Baldwin. When Jim Baldwin was appointed chairman of the Riverfront Commission, the city got its champion for one of the greatest assets that we have, the river. The mayor of Peoria, Jim Maloof, approached then Chairman Don Feitz and asked, who is your rock star? Who's the one who could help the city of Peoria move the riverfront forward? And Don Feitz said Jim Baldwin. Jim is a proud product of Caterpillar, a proud global leader for Caterpillar, and I think we should be very proud of what Jim Baldwin represents in Caterpillar's many gifts to this community. Jim Baldwin is right there at the top of the list. The story of Jim Baldwin is great, though, because here you have someone who comes to Peoria in his corporate capacity and his leadership, sees Peoria maybe differently from the eyes of his post in the corporate world, but also because Jim is somebody who looks for the assets everywhere. And so he keeps looking at our river, this tremendous asset of beauty and history storytelling and commerce. It's the 3rd highest trafficked river in America behind the Mississippi and the Ohio rivers. Jim really takes on the cause of helping us all to realize that one of the greatest inland waterways in the whole United States of America is something we should embrace. And there's still more to come on what we do to use our river, to celebrate our river, to tell the stories that the river can tell us. And Jim Baldwin is in absolutely the pantheon of the top modern leaders to help bring to our attention the great storytelling power of the river.
Not many people get a park named after him before they die. And he was the one that was the ringleader of that. I don't think he got a unanimous decision, but they did vote to go ahead and name the festival park of James Baldwin Park. That was cool, and John was the one that did that.
The park that is the home to so many of these festivals and a gathering place for the great events of our community should bear the name Jim Baldwin. So I proposed it, and the council and the mayor as a whole voted it in, and so glad we did. People like Jim Baldwin, and there are not too many like him, there's only one Jim Baldwin, when they serve civically in the way that they do, it's nice to salute them and recognize them in ways that spark others to follow. So I hope that Jim Baldwin's example continues to spark more of his servant leader kinds of people in the future. I think Jim Baldwin thought that the river and the riverfront gave us an opportunity to bring culture and entertainment and places for family to gather. And so Baldwin is a pioneer for the Riverfront Museum, which I'm proud to lead now. It's certainly an outgrowth and a product of the kind of riverfront that Jim Baldwin envisioned. And so the stairwell and clock that the Historical Society owns and is on permanent display at the Peoria Riverfront Museum, what a perfect place for Jim Baldwin's name. Every visitor who comes to the Peoria Riverfront Museum who is about to experience the most extraordinary clock and mechanism in Peoria sees Jim and Lou Baldwin on that stairwell.
When I retired from Caterpillar, I then became chairman of the Heartland Water Resource Council. And I did that for a few years, and then we decided that because we had toured Springdale Cemetery and it was appalling, I got involved with that and got the city, county, and the park district involved and became the chairman of the Springdale Authority.
I know for a darn fact that without his involvement there, that it's very, very, very possible that that cemetery would have gone in a very different direction than what it has, and who knows where that would be today. The ability of Jim Baldwin to be involved in civic projects throughout the community was largely made possible by knowing that his employer, Caterpillar, would back these projects, so the community as a whole owes Jim and the people he worked with on that project when that cemetery was in so much trouble to save that community jewel.
There's no question, Jim has set the very high bar for everybody that followed him. And thankfully, because you don't want to reinvent that wheel every time there's a change in management. I did talk to my current manager, grounds superintendent, and said, I'm going to say some things about Jim Baldwin. Can you add anything? He said, no, he did so much and he was a wonderful guy to work for. Well, I got this one. He called me and he said, get your team together and go up to so-and-so place and clean it up, or whatever it was that it was. Just clean it up, take care of it. They did exactly that, and they were about a half hour into the project, and the general manager at the time, who will go nameless, saw his staff working feverishly on this area, and he said, what are you doing? He said, well, Jim asked us to come up and do this. And he said, oh no, you're done. Pack it up. They all met up at the maintenance shed about 10 minutes later. And Jim said, what are you doing? Are you done already? He said, no, so-and-so told us to leave. It only took 10 minutes to get him back on the job.
It was privately owned, and we got the state to condemn the ownership because it was in terrible condition. They'd taken virtually all the money out of the trust funds. All of our legislators were very supportive to get it turned over to be a public entity. Those first few years were really tough. And in fact, people that drive through the cemetery said, "Why in the world did you build Baldwin obelisk at the cemetery?" I said we had to pay the payroll for 2 months, and that was the only way we could do it. If you really know the cemetery, all the cultures that are represented, and they're separated, but they're all together. And I think one of the things that we really enjoyed was we accommodated a lot of various ethnic cultures. It's a place I just drive through because it's a very beautiful place. It's truly a great cemetery.
There's a saying, something about people that get asked for things and efforts all the time usually get tired of it. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that people get asked to do things and provide things all the time because they're the best people to go to. They enjoy doing it, they get gratification from it, they know what good it does to the community or others, and that's why they continue to do it.
If you really want to sum up Jim, the number one thing that I see is his ability to get people to work together to a common goal. It's just amazing to me how he can keep his eye on the goal, keep focused on that, and get people energized about that goal, and together we can accomplish amazing things.
I belong to a Ford automobile club. The Wheels of Time was trying to find somebody to participate in the new building they were building. The Ford Club decided that they wanted to get involved, and therefore the board of the Wheels of Time wanted somebody from the club to be on the board. Soon after that, I got on the board.
Jim became involved with Wheels of Time to build what we now affectionately call the Ford Building. He was very heavily involved with the Ford V8 Club, and through those efforts, we were able to build another building out at Wheels of Time. Jim's leadership was just instrumental in making that building happen.
Jim was on the board when the Landmarks Foundation approached the Wheels of Time Museum, and he was instrumental in helping the board reach a decision to bring the house out to their facility. He was involved very early on, and then as we got into more of the details and putting together budgets and putting together various work committees, Jim was always there. I know when we first established a budget for the project, I thought there was no way we could go to the community and ask them for the type of dollars that we had identified that it was going to take to restore this rusty old piece of junk. Jim was very positive, and he thought for sure we could do that. With Jim's leadership, we went forward and we got it done. One of my favorite memories of Jim working on the Steel House project is we showed up at the house down on Washington Street after it had been moved to the company that was going to do the sandblasting of the lead paint on the exterior and interior. And there's Jim with his pickup truck loaded down with all sorts of old metal light fixtures and air conditioning ducts that we had hauled out of the interior of the house so that we could prepare it for stripping the paint. And he's there with his college-age granddaughter, and she's working right along with him, and they're going to take all this stuff down to the metal recycling company down the street. And they came back, and she was so proud. "Hey, Grandpa and I got $40 for all our junk." So he's obviously passing on his legacy of leadership and how to be a committed community volunteer to his grandkids.
Lou and I don't get involved in projects that we don't really feel good about. It's got to be something that we see is going to benefit the community.
That's one of the things that individuals like Jim can do for the community. Try and impart that sense of community involvement, community leadership, community pride to a younger generation.
Jim and Lou Baldwin are people who love the community, but who really step up and make a difference. They are doers, they are givers, and they're visionaries. History informs the present and inspires the future. To have an award that honors the historic founder of our community, the French explorer Henri deTonti, is first of all special in and of itself, and a constant reminder that the Peoria Historical Society has given us about how we are the oldest continuously settled city in the entire Midwest. And deTonti is an appropriate award to give to somebody like Jim Baldwin, who himself is at the forefront of putting the stake down for new ideas.
You never ever do this all by yourself.